Welcome back to the My Journey podcast, the place where I document my freelance journey. With the help of my good friend Tom Scott, we discuss a whole range of business related topics. We do this by randomizing subjects, interviewing incredible guests, and answering your questions. Due to technical issues, this week is going to be another solo episode, but I'm going to try and keep it as similar to the duo episodes as I possibly can. So with that in mind, we're going to start with what I've been up to since we last caught up. Now, I'm aware that I've done the solo episode last week, so I'm going to treat this as over the last couple of weeks since me and Tom last did an episode together. So it's quite interesting because I've just been writing the content for my newsletter, which goes out. If you want to sign up to that, visit themattjohnson.co.uk/newsletter, filled with lots of top tips, great content, and the latest news from the social media world. But as part of that, I kind of document a bit of my journey as I do on this podcast. And I struggled for things to talk about over the last month. It's really been a case of getting my head down, trying to tick off the tasks on the to-do list, and up until probably this last week, make the most of the weather that we've been having. We seem to have had an extended summer, so I've been doing that. So this section might be a little short, but I've tried to plot a few things that I've been up to. So first things first, and something that we're going to come on to later in this episode, is I've been trying to cover some of the new feature releases by the different platforms. So there's LinkedIn Stories. Facebook is testing a new way for you to manage your feeds. So you'll have three options, either the normal news feed, selecting favorites and then only seeing their feeds, their posts, or like a time ordered feed, so that it's going back to how Facebook used to be, where anything that was posted most recently goes to the top and it's all in time order. So that's quite an interesting development for Facebook, but as I've been saying across social media, it's a bit of an odd one because their platform's just, in my opinion, becoming too cluttered. There's so much stuff going on: marketplace, gaming, dating now. It's quite a lot to get your head around. So although it's a great feature, it might get lost. Over on Twitter, we've seen the launch of the retweets prompt function. So when you retweet a article, you will be prompted to have read that article. If Twitter can see you've not clicked the link, it will prompt you to click the link before you retweet it. That's to try and stop the spread of misinformation. And then also, when you go to retweet something, the quote retweet will become the default option in order to try and spark people into adding more context to posts and creating more of a conversation around what's already being shared on Twitter. So yeah, lots of new features coming out. I've been trying to cover them, share my views on them, and as I say, we'll be coming on to one of them very shortly. Something I did pick out in my newsletter though that I have been up to is delivering a personal branding session for a company based in Doncaster, which was really good fun. The guys in that team were great to present to. They were up for the session, put forward their ideas, and I think they took a lot on board. I'm just starting to work with them as a business brand, so I think the idea is that they're gonna kind of let me prove myself through the work I'm doing on the business brand, and then if they think that that's doing well, they'll then take it up on their personal brands. Now the boss is behind it, but he's said this is quite a big change for some of the sales staff there, so it's just a matter of, leading by example and showing what we can do on the business side of things to then translate that across to the personal brand. So yeah, interesting times. And I've just had a session booked in for December to deliver to Hull Uni once again. Love doing the sessions with them guys over there. It's a really great place to visit when I can. I think this will be a digital one, but yeah, great to be doing that with students as well, which is completely different to people who are already in employment and looking to increase their personal brands for a particular reason, such as sales. So following on from the pricing episode last week, I believe, I have had a discussion with my own business mentor, about some of the elements of my pricing, because doing that episode made me not question a few things, because as I said in that episode, I'm very happy with where my pricing is, but just fine tuning it a bit, trying to see if we can get it nailed in a few different areas. For example, what if someone commits to a longer term contract, that kind of thing. So that's been really interesting to work on over this last week off the back of the podcast. And as I said in that episode, I am really interested to hear your views on pricing. So if you have got any views on pricing, please do reach out to me and let me know. And then I couldn't not do this section without mentioning the big client. I know Tom will be listening back to this when he gets a chance and wondering what the hell's happening with the big client. Well, I did reach out to him, did ask him where things were at, and their update for me is that it is with their marketing team. It was more with like a development team, the original idea, but it's with their marketing team, who have said they think it's really interesting. However, they've got other priorities at the moment, so it's not going to be top of the list, and it might be a little while before I hear back from them. So I'm sure Tom will ask when we're next on the mic together, but just so you guys know, and Tom knows, that's where it's all at. I am still chasing it, and I will let you know as soon as I can let you know any more about it. I will. Just before we move into the main part of this episode, I just wanted to say thank you ever so much to everyone who's listening. We peaked for almost a day into the iTunes charts once again in the UK entrepreneurship chart. So that's absolutely fantastic news. So if we can keep that going, that would be brilliant. And the way we do that is by subscribing and leaving reviews. We mention it nearly every episode, but if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, or even if this is your first time tuning in, if you could subscribe, leave a review on whichever platform you listen, it would mean the absolute world. Help us reach more people, help us get this a bit further, and yeah, it'd just be a massive pat on the back for us, which we'd absolutely love. Both me and Tom love to see the reviews and the figures going up, so yeah, it'd be absolutely amazing if you could do that for us. But yeah, for now we'll jump into the main part of today's episode. So today it's not going to be a randomized topic, but it is one that I've had a few questions on, and it links back to what I said in the beginning bit about covering new features. Now, nobody said, oh, Matt, can you cover this on the podcast specifically? But I have had quite a few questions about this topic. So I thought it would be good to cover on the podcast, because if other people are asking about it, then I'm guessing you guys, the listeners, might have questions about it as well. And that is LinkedIn Stories. It's a new feature that's come out on LinkedIn, the business networking platform. And it's been stolen, borrowed, copied from the other platforms that all use the stories feature. Started off on Snapchat many years ago, then Instagram kind of took it and made it into a bit of a juggernaut, really. It's huge on Instagram, and it's fair to say, well, I think this might even be very fair to say it's had a mixed reaction. I think probably more true representation is it's had a bit of a negative reaction off the back of the launch. And I feel this is for two reasons, really. The first being that people aren't enjoying the content that they're seeing on there. And I don't know if there's always been a discussion around whether LinkedIn's becoming too much like Facebook. And I feel that some people think that this is another step towards that, and it's not what people want to see on the platform. So there's been a bit of pushback from that kind of crowd and them kind of people. And then also it's had a negative reaction because it's not as good as people would have expected it to be at the launch. It's been compared to Instagram, which has loads of great features like the polls and the quizzes, that kind of thing, and you've just got none of that on LinkedIn. Now, it is a new feature. Do expect more things to be coming. Expect more functionality to be included as we go along with this further down the line. But even I have to say, I'm disappointed with it, and I'm probably one of the people who's more positive towards LinkedIn Stories at the moment. I am disappointed with it. I know it is a new release, but there's very limited functionality there. You can type in, I think it's about 5 or 6 colours, and you can use the stickers that are all preset, or you can tag somebody in, and that's about it. Where, you know, as I say, comparing it to Instagram, as people who've used Instagram, there's no comparison really there. A lot of people are just translating content across from other platforms, even not removing the functionality it's got. So people are putting up polls on Instagram and then copying it across onto LinkedIn, and the polls don't work because it's just a video. You can't actually interact with it. So yeah, it's not been fantastic. And as I say, it's got a bit of a negative reaction, and I can see where people come from, especially on that limited functionality side. In terms of the complaints about the quality of the content, there's two things really on that, and I kind of disagree with it, because some people aren't happy about the content they're seeing on stories. Now, I understand about LinkedIn as a whole maybe becoming too much Facebook. Like, if you want to use LinkedIn as a business platform, you can't really avoid that. So I can understand why people get frustrated about that. But if you're somebody who uses LinkedIn and you think it's getting too much Facebook like, and you don't like the content in the stories, well, just don't watch the stories. I know that might be a bit too blunt for some people, but if you don't like what's happening in the stories, don't watch them. They sit at the top, yes, but they take up about 2 centimeters of your screen, and if that, and once you scroll down, they disappear. So I kind of can't see the argument about that, because you don't have to watch them, you don't have to interact with them. And also, I think, quite controversially, it maybe says a lot about the people you're following if you don't like the content. I'm quite different in the way that I run my social media profiles and who I follow. Lots of people just follow and connect with people in trying to get their own figures up, which, if you've listened to this podcast for a while, you might know that I don't believe in that kind of vanity metrics approach. But I'm also very precious over my feed, and I only want to see content from people I really trust and I really want to hear from, and I like the stuff that they're putting out. So I won't connect with people I don't actually know, because I think that's of no value to me. I don't know who these people are. They're probably just going to spam me, especially like when you start looking at how many connections they've got. They don't really care about that connection with me as an individual. They're just trying to get more connections themselves. So if you're following that many people that are putting out bad content on stories, maybe that says more about the people you're connected with than the actual content. I'm connected with quite a few people, and I have to say some of the content is quite poor on LinkedIn, but not all of it, not enough to make me want to complain about it. That's the same on Instagram. I find quite a lot of the Instagram stories content poor, and I just skip through it, and then one or two will catch my eye, and that's the same on LinkedIn at the moment. I would say there's some good content being put out there, but maybe I'm wrong. Please do tell me if that's what you feel. If you're interested, by the way, in finding out more about what LinkedIn stories are, maybe you sat there going, you don't use LinkedIn, you're thinking, what the hell are you on about? Or maybe you are using LinkedIn and you've seen this thing at the top of your mobile app and you don't know what it is, or maybe you're on desktop, you won't have seen it if you're only using desktop, and you've got no idea what I'm on about, and maybe you want to know a bit more, then I've written a blog post about LinkedIn stories which covers what they are, how they work, and what kind of content you should be putting out, and whether or not you should be using them. Just to read that post, visit themattjohnson.co.uk/blog, and it'll be the top post there. So that's themattjohnson.co.uk/blog. And you can read a bit more in depth about it and hopefully educate yourself about how to use them and how they work. I just wanted to move on to some stats quite quickly, because it kind of provides both sides of the argument. And I know me and Tom have done the debate style before on this podcast, and it worked really well. So I kind of wanted to bring that in, even though I'm on my own today, and kind of provide both sides of the arguments. As I'm saying, I'm probably more positive towards it. I can see some negative arguments, but let's just leave some of the stats that he is talking. So 72% of LinkedIn users are over the age of 30, but stories are most popular with an audience under 30. So it kind of says that they're missing the mark, they're missing their target audience there. But maybe this is a move to try and draw a younger audience into using the platform more often. If they're creating stories that allow you to be creative, hopefully with more functionality, maybe younger users will start using the platform more and engaging with it, and therefore increase their user base. The other thing which I've briefly touched upon is that they're not available on desktop, but 43% of visitors to LinkedIn are on a desktop device. So instantly, about just short of half your audience is not even able to see this new feature. Now, again, we're expecting that they probably will be available on desktop to view, not to add to, but to view at some point, as they are on Instagram. But it's a bit of a missed opportunity there, that a huge proportion of your audience is not able to see them. And you might think, well, actually the majority of the audience is on mobile, but when you compare that to other sites, you're looking at 80-90% mobile use across Facebook, probably 90+% using mobile devices to access Facebook, where there's stories. Instagram, again, is up near them figures as well. So LinkedIn's mobile usage is really, really low compared to other platforms, yet they've made a mobile only feature. So I can definitely see the argument there that that's maybe a bit of a missed opportunity, a bit of an own goal. However, they did test this feature in 7 countries, including the US, before releasing it worldwide. So they wouldn't, maybe there's a sake of maybe losing face and that they would have done it anyway, but I don't think that they would have released this if they didn't know that it was the right thing to do. And also, when you start looking at other platforms, you've got to kind of project where this could go. And half of Instagram's users use stories on a daily basis, which is a huge amount considering that's not actually the core functionality of the site, it's actually their feed. So half of daily active users are using stories, which is pretty mind-boggling really. And if you could see the kind of same pattern across LinkedIn, I mean, agreed that would probably mean 90% of mobile users would have to be using LinkedIn based on the figures of the mobile and desktop users. But it could be, if they bring in more functionality, I just feel it's got a lot of potential. The whole point of stories is that you document stuff that you wouldn't post about in the main feed. That's what I see it as. And actually, we're in a business environment. We want to create connection with other people within the business world. And posting about your innovative solution or posting about, I don't know, one picture from a conference you've been to doesn't really give them that connection with you. Whereas if you could document your day at a conference, or you could show them behind the scenes or that kind of thing, and I know this is frustrating people, but like I say, if you don't want to see that content, don't interact with it. But there's real opportunity there for some brands to really take hold on LinkedIn, and it's something I'm going to be looking at over the coming months, is how I can utilize that as a space for me to kind of communicate with my audience. But there's a real opportunity there, I feel, real opportunity with LinkedIn stories. And I don't know, I think they've not done themselves justice in what they've released. It's not up to scratch, it's not good enough. But I don't think that means that the functionality should be written off completely, which some people are doing. And also, controversially, I think some people within the industry within which I work went out not seconds, but hours after that was released and said it wasn't good enough, because there'd been a bit of a build up to it coming out, and I think they just wanted to be a little bit controversial. I don't know, I might be wrong, but I definitely think it's got potential. I think it could be one of these things that we look back in 3-4 years time and think, how did we use LinkedIn without stories? Or we can't imagine it without the stories feature. But that is just my opinion. As I say, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Please get in touch at the MJ Social on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. If you're looking for me on LinkedIn, you can search for at the MJ Social. My business page should come up, but it's Matt Johnson. There's plenty of others out there, but it should come up. And yeah, I'd just love to hear your views on it. Am I right? Am I wrong? Do you agree? Do you disagree? I'd love to hear from you, because this is one that is dividing opinion. And there's not many voices out there that are saying it's a good thing. But if you're not thinking it's a good thing, I'd love to hear why. Maybe I've missed your reason for not liking them. I'd love to hear it, because I can't provide the best value to my audience unless I know what their issues are. And if you've got an issue that I want to help you solve that issue, or maybe understand that issue and help you find an alternative solution to communicating with your ideal clients, if you don't feel LinkedIn stories are right for you. I think that's everything for today's episode. It's been a bit of a shorter one, obviously being on my own, due to the technical difficulties we had with my Wi-Fi predominantly. But yeah, hopefully next time there'll be 2 of us on the mic when we get around to the duo episodes. Next episode will actually be a solo episode, because that's how it is in our little plan. Coming up to episode 40. If I remember, I'll try and do something special for it. I don't know what, but 40 is a big milestone. As I said at the beginning, thank you to everyone who's listening, commenting, giving us feedback, mentioning it to us, subscribing, reviewing, and as ever, sharing with a friend. You know, that's, if you don't want to leave a review, if you can't leave a review, if you can't subscribe, whatever reason, just pass it on to a friend. That would mean just as much if you could just say, look, I found this podcast. I think it's really incredible. The guys who run it are like the best people I've ever heard. All that kind of stuff. Just big us up loads. And then if you could share it with friends, it would be absolutely incredible if they listen to an episode. It could mean they carry on subscribing, and that would make a massive difference to us on the podcast. But yeah, I think that's everything. I'm kind of waffling on a little bit now. We've been going 20 minutes. So yeah, until next time, thanks for listening.